Discover the incredible moment a waitress transformed $5,000 of mockery into an inspiring triumph. Clara adjusted her apron in front of the diner's greasy mirror, a heavy weight already resting on her shoulders. The scent of brewed coffee permeated the air, mingling with the warmth of sizzling bacon that played like a comforting melody against the vibrant chatter of the morning rush. As she served another plate of pancakes, laughter from a nearby table drifted to her ears, wrapping around her spirit like a noose. What would a waitress know about science? Their polished sneers pierced deeper than the way the sizzling grease popped on the griddle. Their morphed words, laughter dressed in designer suits, blackened her dreams into fleeting shadows. All she wanted was to return to school, to trade plates for pipettes, to flood her mind with knowledge instead of diner gossip. Clara bit the inside of her cheek to suppress her tears. It was contempt glimmering in their eyes, not disbelief, that haunted her. They thought her aspirations beneath them. In the wraps of those moments, Clara buried her ambition back beneath the weight of her apron. Who was she to dream? The burden stretched thin, tangled with the responsibility of her ailing mother and younger siblings depending on her tips for groceries, bills, and essentials. Clara inhaled deeply, the hot air from the kitchen filling her lungs, fueling a desperate determination that ignited her ambition. The competition is for the elite. She could almost hear the doubt echoing through her mind. Yes, the doubt that held her in a claw-like grip. But as the morning wore on and the mocking laughter echoed in her head, determination bloomed into indignation. What if she stepped beyond the confines of Joe's diner? What if she entered that nationwide science competition, a dream she'd brushed off as unattainable? The thought quickened her heart. A tiny glimmer of hope ignited, merging with an undercurrent of fear. Could she, a waitress in a small town, truly claim her rightful place in the wider world? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each day Clara moved through the diner felt heavier, the responsibilities wrapped around her like tight shackles. Sifting through research papers late into the night, energy drinks became her lifeline, kitchen gadgets transformed into her tools of innovation. Yet amidst scientific breakthroughs, doubt crept in like unwelcome visitors. What if this was all a delusion? Was she truly cut out for this? The thought of confronting her responsibility at home while yearning to prove her worth clawed at her insides, twisting her stomach as she hoped for a potent surge of motivation. As her project gained traction, the same patrons who had once mocked her filled her thoughts, their condescending laughter etching itself into every research formula she drafted. Clara could feel it closing in, an inevitable confrontation lurking on the horizon. She was standing on the edge of her dreams, and the fear of failing, of facing those mocking smiles once more, pulsated within her, threatening to drown her in despair. How could she present her work with conviction? Determination and dread twined tightly, the stakes climbing higher with every second. This was more than a competition. It was a chance to reveal her true self to a world that had deemed her invisible. All that remained was a moment of brilliance, and the reflection of everyone who doubted her. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the diner as Clara wiped down the counter, her mind miles away from the flickering fluorescent lights. She had long passed the threshold where her ambition began to overshadow her fatigue. Each day she channeled her exhaustion into a renewed focus. The science competition loomed closer, and every moment felt crucial. Her evenings were consumed by experiments and calculations, notes sprawled across the tiny kitchen table at home, often in the company of a restless younger sibling doing homework, or a sick mother dozing in the next room. It was a chaotic symphony of obligations, yet in the heart of that tumult, Clara found a strange sense of calm. The chaos was a constant reminder of why she pushed forward, but clarity often came at a price. One evening, in the glow of her desk lamp, the glaring doubts resurfaced. What if the project flopped? What if she arrived at the competition, and her hypotheses proved wrong? Clara was immersed in a conflict that gnawed at her thoughts, pitting her fervent yearning against a paralyzing fear of failure. She watched the horizon of her aspirations shimmer enticingly, and yet, insecurities clutched at her with icy fingers. "Breathe," she whispered to herself, each inhalation a calculated effort, each exhalation an attempt to dispel the storm brewing in her mind. She began to list her accomplishments, a mental note of everything that brought her to this juncture. She had mastered concepts that had seemed insurmountable, discovered creative solutions to problems that arose unexpectedly. Still, the laughter of the patrons replayed in her mind, a mocking echo vibrating within her. The next day at the diner, a different aroma wafted through the air during the lunch rush. This time Clara felt fortitude swell inside her, an unshakable intent radiating through her actions. She could hear the idle chatter about her between tables, whispers about her audacity to pursue something greater than a life behind the counter. It hurt, but it also ignited a fervent passion. She was no longer merely a waitress, she was a scientist in disguise, with the heart of a warrior. When Clara returned home, she poised her notebook firmly under the pen's tip and began to draft her presentation. Each word, each diagram, reflected not just her scientific findings, but her journey. She poured into it not just data, but the story of a girl fighting against the odds. It was more than facts. It was a testament to her resilience. She knew that this presentation would not simply represent her intelligence, it would reveal her identity. But doubt twisted at her, whispering that her story belonged in the back rooms of diners, not on grand stages. Clara knew that every moment she wavered was a moment coiled tight around her neck, ready to pull. Yet, as the deadline approached, she felt a rising tide of courage surging in her veins. Before her, the path seemed murky, but there was profound clarity as she embraced the depths of her dilemma. The time had come to face an arduous choice. Would she accept a steady position in the diner, feeding the expectations of others, or would she dare to leap into the unknown? Clara felt a thrill run through her. The moment of decision laid bare in front of her, and she could sense the weight of the world bracing itself before cracking wide open. Taking a deep breath, she knew she was on the brink of testing not only her creativity but her very soul. How deeply did her ambition run? As she clutched her notes, Clara could almost hear the crowd of disbelievers in the background, waiting to witness her plunge into daring. With each heartbeat reverberating loudly in her ears, the air grew thick with anticipation for what was to follow. Clara awoke the next day with a strange mixture of exhilaration and dread consuming her thoughts. A new day had dawned, yet the pivotal moment loomed larger than ever. She knew that every hour brought her closer to the decision that would define not just her future, but her very self. The notes on her desk beckoned her with the promises of discoveries and untested theories, yet the whispers of doubt echoed loudly, drowning them out. At the diner, the ambiance felt charged. The familiar sounds, the clinking of plates, the low drone of conversation, served as a stark reminder of her double life. With each passing moment, challenges awaited her both inside and outside these walls. As Clara navigated between tables, her hands moved automatically while her mind rehearsed her speech, the one she would deliver in front of judges who would ultimately dictate her future. "Clara," her manager's voice broke through her reverie. "Table 4 needs their check." "Yes, right away." The momentary pause in her thoughts catalyzed a surge of clarity. The busy diner, filled with laughter and conversation, was in many ways better than any polished stage. It was raw and unfiltered, just like her journey. Each interaction with a customer provided an opportunity to practice. "Thank you for dining with us. Did you enjoy your meal?" The more she rehearsed in her mind, the more naturally her words seemed to flow. Clara realized that she could blend the passion and precision of her scientific work into every conversation. Engaging the patrons was no different from presenting her findings. Each response was a new data point, an insight that deepened her understanding of human connection. By the time the diner had emptied and the sun slipped behind the horizon, she found herself sitting back at her kitchen table, the same chaotic symphony surrounding her. Now it felt less chaotic, more like a mosaic of interconnected realities. Her scientific ambitions, her obligations to family, her role in the diner. Something about this overwhelming mix felt oddly comforting. It was proof of her multifaceted existence. With renewed vigor, Clara picked up her pen. She started to jot down her thoughts, not just about her scientific project, but about the personal stakes involved, the expectations of her family, the judgments of her peers, and the ghost of failure that had haunted her for so long. "Success is a collection of failures," she wrote, testing the phrase on her page like a scientist assessing whether a new hypothesis holds water. As she mulled it over, she realized that her narrative did not have to be one of triumph alone. Every setback could instead serve as testimony to resilience. In that moment, she unearthed a hidden competency, the ability to transmute personal struggles into compelling narratives rich with authenticity. Encouraged by this realization, Clara began to draft the closing of her presentation. She wanted her peers to understand that behind every statistic was a story, a heart beating with the rhythm of persistent hope. A sudden thought popped up. Could she harness the energy from the diner? Perhaps she could open her presentation with a metaphor about the interconnectedness of her life experiences, the essence of cooking a meal versus conducting an experiment. Her ideas flowed, and yet a residual tension lingered in the air. The impending competition hovered over her like a storm cloud. What if she was just setting herself up to be mocked again? What if the risks didn't yield results, but instead brought humiliation? These questions punctured her newfound enthusiasm, but instead of retreating, Clara steeled her resolve. "Breathe," she whispered, reminding herself of the power in acknowledgement rather than dismissal of fear. Tomorrow would be different. She would present her story not just for validation but to continue expanding that narrative for herself. Each anxiety-turned challenge was a rebirth of her purpose. As Clara tucked her materials away, she felt a surge of determination prickling beneath her skin, igniting a belief that victory lay not only in winning, but in courageously being true to herself. With the deadline lurking just a heartbeat away, the cacophony of her responsibilities had transformed into a call to action. Clara smiled, a new light sparking in her chest, as she considered what it would mean to stand before her detractors and turn their mockery into applause. She was no longer a mere waitress. She was becoming a potent storyteller, poised to challenge everything they had come to expect. Her heart raced as she sketched the outline of her presentation, now more than mere science. It was the unfolding saga of a girl willing to redefine her fate. A wave of anxiety curdled within her, but she was not so affected by it. Clara understood that the real journey had just begun. Then came the thought. Was she ready to confront the most significant antagonist of all? It was time to face the mockery head-on, to redefine who she was, beyond just her ambitions, but as an individual. With the stage set for her presentation, the question remained. Could this daring leap reshape not only her future, but also the very essence of her identity? Clara barely slept that night, her thoughts a whirlwind of excitement and anxiety. She stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, the dark circles under her eyes contrasting sharply with the fire simmering within. Questions spiraled through her mind. What if she stumbled? What if they laughed? Yet amid the chaos, a steady pulse of determination beat beneath her doubts, reminding her of the courage she had claimed for herself. As the sun climbed higher, she slipped into her favorite outfit, simple but elegant, and noticed the subtle shift in her posture. This wasn't the silhouette of a waitress, but of someone who had a story worth telling. The nerves began to bubble again, but she bent over the kitchen table, touching her presentation materials, conjuring the beating heart of her message. At the diner, the routine felt different. Each order call echoed not just the bustling rhythm of a busy operation, but heralded her transformation. The interactions with her customers now felt charged with meaning. A kind woman at the counter shared tales of her grandchildren, and Clara listened, carefully absorbing each story. She felt the weight of shared experiences, the laughter and the tears solidifying her conviction. This was a world she belonged to, where her voice mattered. During a lull in the lunchtime rush, Clara seized the moment. She gathered the waitstaff, a mix of seasoned and fresh faces, and practiced her opening line. Just like a meal brings together flavors, my scientific journey brings together the complexities of life. She delivered it with sincerity, and the way their eyes lit up gave her a jolt of assurance. If she could make her colleagues relate, perhaps she could reach her audience tomorrow as well. The hours slipped by, and each minute felt like a double-edged sword, slicing through her excitement and fear. The anticipation was almost tangible as she approached the afternoon shift. As usual, the clattering of plates and clinking of forks surrounded her, but for the first time in weeks, Clara felt at home in that chaotic sanctuary. The diner began to clear out, and as she tidied the last few tables, she felt a tap on her shoulder. It was Luna, a regular customer who'd become a friendly face. "Clara, I overheard your talk with the staff. You can do this. I believe in you." The warmth in Luna's words pierced through Clara's residual anxieties, transforming doubt into a cushion of support. She let herself breathe deeply, the space imbued with muffled conversations and the heady aroma of cooking food. This was where she had learned resilience, where she had gathered stories and surprises that would lend weight to her presentation. Later that night, she spread her notes across her kitchen table one final time. The reality of the competition loomed large, but Clara had discovered a new dimension to her approach. Her performance wouldn't simply be a recitation of facts. It would weave an intricate story filled with emotions, a testimony of grit, joy, and the humanity behind mundane statistics. She envisioned herself pacing the stage, strength radiating as she shared her narrative, a blend of science and life, both captivating and relatable. Clara caught a glimpse of herself in the window, the glow of the streetlights illuminating her resolve. She was not just about data. She was an amalgamation of experiences. Each moment spent at the diner was woven into her identity, something more valuable than any adversary's scorn. Suddenly a doubt crept in. If they still laughed, would she falter? But as quickly as it surfaced, she set it aside. This was about more than validation. It was a chance to reclaim her story. The mockery she once dreaded was now the fabric of her motivation, not its shackles. That sense of purpose rippled through her again, as she tucked the presentation folder into her bag with deliberate care. The time had come to act, and Clara was ready. She stepped outside, her heart racing, aware that tomorrow would mark the first day of a new chapter. In the depths of her spirit, she knew that should she brave this leap, it would not only embrace the applause of the crowd, but truly redefine her entire being. The question consumed her as she drifted to sleep later that night. Could she step on that stage and emerge transformed, the echo of laughter eventually becoming a catalyst for her success? Indeed, she would soon find out. The air was tinged with a sharp edge of nervous anticipation as dawn broke. Clara awoke with a determined clarity, the remnants of doubt now reduced to embers smoldering within her. She swung her legs over the side of her bed, feeling the cool hardwood floor contrast against the heat of her resolve. Today wasn't just another day, it was a reckoning, a chance to weave her identity as a scientist with her experiences as a waitress into a tapestry vibrant enough to captivate any audience. As she prepared for the day, she reviewed her notes, her mind racing with the concepts she had integrated into her storytelling. This was no longer just about data. This was a narrative bursting with life, and she was the author. Each point she made would connect back to the heat of the kitchen, the laughter shared with customers, the fleeting moments of joy. She wanted her audience to feel the sweat on her brow and the thrill of discovery that had driven her journey. Clara's day at the diner began, and she moved through the familiar rhythm with renewed energy. Each plate served, each customer engaged, became not just tasks but affirmations of her purpose. A regular named Mr. Henderson commented on the weather while sipping his coffee, prompting Clara to respond with a smile. "It's a great day to be alive and chase dreams, isn't it?" He looked at her, his eyes twinkling with surprise, perhaps for the first time realizing there was more to her than a mere waitress. Amid the clamor, Clara made a brave decision. During the slowest stretch of the afternoon, she gathered the staff once more, intent on refining her message. "I'm giving a presentation tonight," she said, feeling the gravity of her words. "And I want to share more than science. I want to tell a story about life, about us. In encouraging them to share their stories, she ignited the embers of connection. Each anecdote threaded through with laughter and reflection deepened her conviction. They offered not only cheers, but constructive advice, questioning aspects of her presentation that needed clear definitions, allowing Clara to improve on the details which could potentially stumble her in front of a crowd. Refreshed from the practice, she retreated to the back with a new sense of empowerment. The realization struck her. Her colleagues believed in her potential. Sharing their stories underscored a truth she had once feared. Standing under the spotlight didn't mean standing alone. Clara revised her script accordingly, incorporating snippets of their wisdom alongside her own experiences. They had sown seeds of confidence, and she was ready to let them bloom. As she neared her shift's end, Clara's heart raced with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The diner bustled with life, but her focus sharpened inward. She could feel the ticking clock, each second exerting more pressure. She glanced at the clock and felt that familiar rush of adrenaline. Was she prepared? Would her story resonate? Leaving the diner behind felt both liberating and terrifying. She slipped into her favorite outfit, a reminder not just of the person she had always been, but the brave woman she was becoming. She caught another glimpse of herself in the mirror again, straightening her shoulders, standing taller than ever. Gliding towards the event location, questions buzzed through her mind like fireflies. What if she faltered when their eyes focused on her? What if she found herself lost among the notes and dreaded silence? But Clara refused to be overwhelmed. In that moment, she decided to confront her fears head-on. The echo of laughter wouldn't deter her this time. It would fuel her endeavor. As she entered the venue, she took a deep breath, the energy of the crowd enveloping her. The stage loomed ahead, inviting yet daunting. Stepping forward felt monumental, a test of everything she'd worked for, the culmination of all her experiences. The moment was upon her and she was ready to share her story, her truth. The room dimmed, and a spotlight illuminated the stage, illuminating Clara and transforming her insecurities into a canvas of possibilities. Would she embrace her vulnerability or shrink into the shadows of doubt? The choice was hers to make, and as she clutched her presentation notes, she was poised to discover how laughter could indeed become a triumphant overture. Would Clara seize the moment and redefine her journey, or would the specter of doubt pull her back once more? Clara stood at the edge of the stage, the spotlight a warm embrace while the murmurs of the audience faded into a dull hum. She could feel the weight of their anticipation pressing in, urging her to take the first step toward her unknown. Just moments ago she had felt invulnerable, emboldened by the collective support of her coworkers. Yet here, under the flood of light, the tendrils of doubt whispered fiercely at the edges of her mind. Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself, recalling the faces of those she had engaged with in the diner. Each interaction, an anchor pulling her back from the abyss of uncertainty. With a rush of adrenaline fueling her, she stepped forward, heart racing. "Hello, everyone." Her voice, though steady, quivered slightly as it carried through the hall. "My name is Clara, and today I'm here not just to present dry research but to share a story about my journey as a scientist and a waitress." The connection she sensed in the room stirred something deep within her. It was no longer her future that felt at stake, but rather a shared experience. This nuanced shift provided her with strength as she began recounting tales of the diner, threads of laughter and humanity mingling with the precision of scientific inquiry. Her first story surfaced, a chaotic lunch rush where everything that could go wrong did. A missed order, laughter cracking through her frustration as she dropped a tray of dishes. "I learned that day," she continued, "that sometimes you must embrace the chaos. In science, beautiful breakthroughs often emerge from the messiest experiments." As laughter erupted from her audience, Clara recognized that these were not mere anecdotes. They were bridges connecting her disparate worlds. The room transformed into a dialogue, a dynamic exchange far removed from the solitary nature of research. Each chuckle bolstered her confidence, each nod affirmed the authenticity of her narrative. But she was not done. There were truths she needed to wrestle with, existential questions simmering beneath the surface. The moment she had anticipated was inching closer. Would she reveal the hardest part? The event that had almost derailed her? With a deep breath, she crossed the threshold into vulnerability. A few months ago, I received scorn for the very dreams I was pursuing. I pitched my research at a local event, and it was met with mockery. They called my theories laughable. The warmth in her chest coldly echoed that painful memory. I was humiliated for thinking outside the box, for believing my work mattered. The audience fell silent, captivated by her candor. Clara could hear her heartbeat in her ears amid the stillness. Here, vulnerability forged a new connection. She wasn't just sharing a story, she was depicting a moment of resilience, a journey through doubt into the light of self-acceptance. I stood there feeling like a waitress, overlooked and unimportant. Yet it was in that moment of ridicule that I found my purpose. I realized I had to reclaim my narrative. The resolve in her voice grew, each word an assertion of power. I turned what they saw as mockery into fuel for transformation. The energy in the room shifted again, a palpable strength churning in the air. Clara sensed that every person was leaning in, touched by her honesty. She vowed to give them something they could hold on to, a reminder of their own resilience in the face of judgment. As she approached the conclusion of her presentation, she was struck by a fabric of connection woven between herself and the crowd. Today, I'm here not just to speak, but to inspire you to embrace your own quirks, to find strength in what others might dismiss, she declared, her excitement evident. But just before stepping into the final affirmation of her message, Clara felt a sudden weight. Voices of doubt loomed larger now. What if they didn't rally behind her? What if the truth behind her triumph was still unconvincing to their discerning ears? With that unsettling thought, she hesitated, her heart caught between what she could leave behind and what she would gain. Would she risk everything for complete authenticity? The crowd waited, their breaths collectively held. Clara was on the precipice of a monumental revelation, staring into the face of self-doubt. Would she reclaim her narrative entirely, or slip back into silence? The moment had come for her to decide. Would she transcend the boundaries that had previously constrained her? Clara mustered every ounce of courage. What awaited her beyond was a truth she longed to acknowledge. The air around Clara thickened with tension as time seemed to suspend, her heartbeat echoing in her ears as she looked out at the sea of expectant faces. This was a critical juncture, a moment laden with responsibility, not just for her own journey, but for everyone gathered. She had reached the point where her narrative swayed on the precipice of liberation, beckoning her to leap. With a deep breath cascading through her chest, Clara felt the weight of self-doubt dissipate, if only momentarily. I shared my ideas at that pitch precisely because I believed in their potential, she started. But that belief was tested, it was shattered, and from the rubble I needed to reconstruct my identity. She could almost see the audience shifting in their seats, drawn into her resurgence. Her story was more than just her experience. It echoed the struggles of many who felt constrained by others' opinions. That ridicule fueled me, Clara continued, her confidence radiating with each rehearsal of her truth. Every laugh that mocked me planted a seed of determination, urging me to dive deeper into my work. The analogy struck her. Ridicule was like data, malleable and waiting to be interpreted. In science, every misstep presented an opportunity for inquiry. She had spent years learning to embrace failure in her experiments, so why not apply the same principle to her personal life? With newfound clarity, she pressed further, eager to disentangle her past traumas from her present triumphs. Failure is a teacher, not a prison. It forms the backdrop against which we learn our greatest lessons. Clara took an earnest pause, catching glimpses of nods from her audience who seemed to recognize their own failures mingled with her words. The crowd had transformed from passive observers into allies on her journey. She could almost taste the hope hang in the air, an electrifying invitation to both embrace and challenge vulnerability. Clara knew she had reached a point of connection she had long yearned for, but a flicker of anxiety buried itself deep in her gut. Would it hold? Recalling the patrons in the diner, she continued, "At times I faced the weight of someone who felt invisible. But here, In this moment, I recognize my worth, and that every glance cast my way is not about rejection, but an invitation to share my truth. The struggle for validation intertwined with her voice, resonating within the audience as she spoke about her resilience. I'm here not just to tell my story, but to encourage each one of you to confront your own doubts. Transform your setbacks into stepping stones. Clara's hand gestured, sweeping across the room, grounding her words in authenticity. The weight behind the message was palpable. It was an urgency that echoed of shared experience, a moment where they were all part of something larger. Realization ignited a spark in her mind. She had traversed beyond the confines of her previous self. Clara had not just reclaimed her narrative, she had become an advocate for honesty and courage. Yet even amidst her victory, a new question surged to the forefront of her thoughts. What was next? Where would this newfound sense of purpose lead her? What doors did this journey open that she had yet to explore? The uncertainty loomed, still lurking in the shadows, twisting and beckoning as she felt the surge of ambition coursing through her veins. Sensing the palpable shift in the audience, Clara finished with commanding clarity. This is only the beginning for me, just as it may be for you. Let us not only embrace our failures but also our ambitions. What will you reclaim? With that provocative shift in tone, she stepped back, eyes glinting with passion. Unbeknownst to her, the stage was set for yet another reckoning, one that would challenge not only her abilities but also the constraints of what she believed she could achieve. What new heights awaited her journey as the future started to unfold into a vast expanse of possibilities? The echo of Clara's words hung in the air like a haunting melody, each phrase resonating in the chest of her now-rapt audience. But as she stepped back from the stage, an unfamiliar, exhilarating tension coursed through her. This moment of triumph felt precarious, teetering on the sharp edge of what might come next. She had done more than just recount her story. She had ignited something within herself, and that could either be liberating or terrifying. Feeling a spark of admiration from those around her, Clara walked off stage convinced that she had turned a vital corner in her life. But soon, a wave of uncertainty crashed over her. It was as if the applause had somehow gathered awareness of her vulnerability, amplifying the fear concealed beneath her newfound courage. As Clara navigated back through the venue, mingling with old colleagues, she found herself confronted by Eric, a former colleague from her dark days at the diner. His eyes held a mixture of skepticism and surprise as he approached her, arms crossed defensively. "Looks like you figured a way to work the crowd," he remarked, his tone a blend of admiration and challenge. "But I wonder, can you deliver beyond the stage? Writing cute little stories for your speeches is one thing, solving real problems is another." His words dripped with contempt, but Clara realized she was no longer shackled by the doubt his insinuation carried. In fact, his challenge became a catalyst. She felt a steely resolve solidifying inside her. "You're right," she replied, her voice steady. "I need to prove it to myself that I can turn this moment into something greater. It's not enough to stand in a spotlight. I have to illuminate the path forward for myself and others." Eric's eyebrows rose, the condemnation replaced with a fleeting admiration. She could tell this was unexpected for him. He had always viewed her as the underdog, the one who faltered under pressure. "So, what's your plan, Clara?" he pressed, a note of curiosity threading through his challenge. "I'm going to start a project," she declared, surprising herself with the certainty of her words. "I'll turn these stories of struggle, like my own, into a guide for those ready to reclaim their lives. I want to show how resilience can build bridges to better futures." As Clara shared her vision, she felt a twinge of fear mingled with exhilaration. This would require action, consistent, purposeful action. The possibilities swelled, yet so did the weight of the commitment she was making to herself. She could envision a series of workshops, a blog that highlighted narratives of recovery and empowerment, all rekindling the hope she had felt tonight. "So you are serious?" Eric continued, his defenses lowered, genuinely intrigued now. "What if it fails?" "Then I'll figure out how to make it succeed from that failure," Clara replied, emboldened. "I won't back down this time." The thought electrified her. Failure was no longer a reflection of her worth, but a stepping stone toward something more profound. She walked away from their conversation with an invigorating mission in mind, each step feeling lighter than the last. The people she envisioned helping inspired her to confront the self-doubt that still whispered in her ear. In the ensuing days, Clara dived headfirst into research, outlining her vision. She sketched out ideas on scraps of paper, and the visions flowed freely, transformative strategies rooted in personal narratives. Each discovery about herself fueled her ambition, illuminating a sense of purpose she had always longed for. Yet, as she mapped out her project, an unease gnawed at her, a haunting memory of the ridicule she endured. Could she truly contribute something meaningful? As she pored over her sketches, doubt returned, a familiar specter looming large. But this time, Clara faced it head-on. "What makes me unique," she whispered to herself, "is the journey I've undertaken." One night, while compiling notes at her kitchen table, she received an unexpected call. A mentor who had once guided her, now offering a chance to present her new project to others who shared her aspirations. The opportunity was enticing, but terrifying. Clara felt the pressure to prove her worth creeping back, weaving doubt into her mind once more. As she stared at her project, she questioned whether she could soar higher than she ever had before. Would she accept this chance to showcase her hard-fought growth? Or would she retreat into the shadows that had previously defined her? The moment to decide loomed ominously, and Clara could almost hear the whispers grow louder, urging her toward a choice that would shape her path in every way. Clara sat at her kitchen table, heart racing as she contemplated the call from her mentor. The invitation to present her project was like a beacon piercing through the fog of uncertainty that had clouded her mind for days. She closed her eyes, letting the thought wash over her. This was her chance, a rare opportunity to turn her passion into something tangible. Yet alongside her excitement simmered a nagging fear. What if she failed? As she opened her eyes, she glanced at the cluttered table littered with notes and sketches. Each paper bore witness to her journey, the trials and triumphs documented in ink. This project was not merely an idea. It was an extension of herself, a representation of her resilience. She could feel her determination flaring. But what if they don't see it the way I see it? The doubt crept in like an uninvited guest. Clara took a deep breath, reminding herself of her resolve. Every story she wrote had the potential to resonate with someone, and that was worth the risk. She needed to face the audience, the one that could be skeptical, but also the one that could find solace in her words. The very stories of struggle that once defined her could now serve as a lifeline for others seeking guidance. With her mentor's words echoing in her mind, Clara began outlining her speech. She filled pages with ideas, visions of workshops and blogs swirling together like a vivid tapestry, all grounded in shared experiences. Her pencil moved frantically, reflecting an urgency that came from a deep well of aspiration. But as she wrote, the specter of vulnerability loomed large once more. What if what she was proposing lacked substance? What if her voice was dismissed? A sudden thought struck her. Was she really being authentic if she allowed fear to dictate her actions? Clara laid her pencil down, her pulse steadier. She had often relied on the approval of others, allowing their skepticism to carry weight in her self-assessment. Yet now she realized that her journey, and the struggles she had faced, was what made her perspective valuable. She had a story that mattered. This revelation ignited a new spark within her. Clara drafted her introduction, intertwining her narrative with the intent to inspire others. She detailed her past experiences, the nights spent working at the diner, the moments of self-doubt, and the instances when she chose perseverance over surrender. Each word flowed more easily as she embraced her truth instead of hiding behind her fears. As days turned into a week filled with research and revision, Clara transformed her initial notes into a structured program that would guide others through similar struggles. She practiced speaking in front of the mirror, ensuring her tone reflected not only passion, but authenticity. Still, the closer she got to the day of her presentation, the more she wrestled with her inner critic. Could she truly stand before her peers and share the deepest parts of herself? Finally, the evening arrived. Clara stood backstage, the low murmur of the audience buzzing around her like static. Her heart thudded in her chest, an unsettling cocktail of anticipation and anxiety. She watched the bright lights that adorned the stage, illuminating the space that would soon become her crucible of transformation. Yet just as she was about to step forward, a voice cut through the crowd. It was Eric, standing at the edge of the venue, arms crossed, his challenging gaze locked onto her. "You think you can do this?" he questioned, the familiar skepticism creeping back in. The moment crystallized in Clara's mind. The choice she had to make was no longer just professional but deeply personal. Would she let his words dismantle her progress? Or would she embrace her journey, acknowledging her power in both triumph and vulnerability? The question loomed as she took a deep breath, then stepped toward the stage. It was time to confront not just the audience, but the very doubts that had shadowed her for so long. The moment was charged with potential, a chance to shatter the remnants of her past while igniting a new chapter in her story. As Clara approached the spotlight, her heart raced with a mix of fear and determination. She felt the waiting crowd a mere breath away, the tension palpable. And amidst it all, one thought burned brightly in her mind. This was no longer merely about her. It was time for action. This singular moment held the weight of her decision, igniting the urge to prove not just to Eric but to herself that she was ready to turn self-doubt into self-empowerment. How would she come to realize the full extent of her transformation as she chose to share her story? Clara stood at the edge of the stage, the vibrant lights illuminating her with radiant clarity as she began to adjust her notes. The murmurs of the audience faded into the background, replaced by a singular focus. The turning point of her journey was now. She took a deep breath, her pulse quickening with the weight of her aspirations, but unlike before, doubt began to dissolve in the surge of her purpose. As she stepped into the spotlight, her voice rang out clear and assured. "Hello everyone, my name is Clara, and today I'm here to share not just a presentation but a story about resilience, growth, and rediscovery." The energy in the room shifted. She could feel the audience leaning in, eager for her words. With each story she recounted from her experiences at the diner, the laughter shared, the mockery faced, Clara's narrative transformed from a tale of hardship into a powerful manifesto. Often, the laughter that hurts us can actually serve as fuel for our determination. I decided not to let it stifle me but to turn it into momentum. Clara's journey reflected genuine transformation. Gone was the timid waitress. In her place stood a confident scientist determined to claim her narrative. Unfazed by the laughter that once haunted her, she articulated the profound lessons learned through her trials. It was in that diner, amidst orders and chaos, that I discovered my true identity as a leader. One who can inspire not just through intellect, but through shared experience. Feedback from the audience shifted from skepticism to intrigue. The ripple effect of her honesty animated the air around her. Clara felt the distance close between her and those she once sought approval from. She began to capture their attention, their expressions shifting from passive observers to engaged participants in her story. With every word, she unraveled the complexities of her life, her struggles, her interactions, her ambition to connect science to people's lived realities. The pivotal moment came when she revealed her project's aim, transforming her story and others into a guide for resilience. "I want to create workshops, a community that fosters connection through stories of growth," she declared, her passion magnifying with each phrase. The spark of inspiration she ignited lingered in the audience, and Clara could feel their support coalescing around her ambition. Clara's confidence surged with the realization that she was no longer confined by former definitions. The audience roared in applause as she reached her conclusion. "I'm not just a waitress or a scientist. I'm a curator of stories and a champion for anyone ready to reclaim their narrative." That moment crystallized not just her triumph in presenting, but solidified her new identity. Recognized as a competent advocate for personal growth, Clara embraced her potential. Stepping down from the stage was not merely about completing a task, it was stepping into a new professional realm where she was ready to leave behind the shackles of doubt. As she exited under the warm glow of applause, she spotted Eric in the crowd, his expression transformed. The skepticism replaced by admiration revealed to Clara that her journey was truly resonating. Whether he was ready to accept her transformation or not, she had proved something monumental to herself. In the days that followed, Clara received invitations to collaborate on her vision. The excitement not about an ending but the beginning of opportunities. Workshops blossomed from her ideas, bringing together individuals eager to share their stories and learn from each other, catalyzing collective growth that her past self couldn't have imagined. With each success, Clara cultivated a solid confidence, a recognition of her competence cultivated through years of perseverance. She stood proudly before each workshop session, ready to empower those eager to reclaim their narratives. Reflecting on her progress, Clara realized that she had not only grown as a scientist and a leader, but she had also transformed into a storyteller, weaving the fabric of human experience into compelling narratives. Each person she inspired reinforced her image in the realm of authentic leadership. In that transformation, Clara felt something remarkable, a conviction pulsing through her veins. She might have started as a waitress at a diner, but she emerged as a force in the field of science and storytelling. Today, Clara is a symbol of resilience, a beacon for those on the brink of discovery. And so, with each new day, she continues to prove that transformation starts from within, and her story is just the beginning. Her journey now fuels the potential for others to step into their own brilliance. Now I want you to take a step in your own personal transformation. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire and empower. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every interaction makes a difference, and we appreciate your support. Comment below with your reactions and theories about the ending, as we love hearing from our viewers. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of rallying together. This is your moment too.